At our niece's naming ceremony, my mill toasted to keeping it in the family. I said, "What does that mean?" My husband put down his champagne and said, "I donated." He meant the sperm. I'm 33F, he's 35M. We live in Richmond, Virginia, in a creaky old duplex in the fan where the magnolia drops leaves the size of dinner plates and the street sweeper sounds like a dragon at 6 a.m. We've been together 8 years, married 4. He's Mark, civil engineer, soccer guy, the kind of man who fixes a wobbly table leg without making a speech about it. I'm Jess, content strategist for a nonprofit, freelance on the side, saver of recipes I'll never cook. His sister Becca and her wife Taryn live 15 minutes away. We do Sunday dinners, James River walks, the whole grown-up siblings who like each other thing. Becca and Taryn have wanted a baby forever. When they started trying, it became a group project in the wholesome way. Charts, clinic appointments, us Venmoing for groceries after retrieval days because the last thing you want to do when you've been poked is chop onions. They told us they'd use a bank donor. We found a profile we love. Taryn said one night on their porch, passing around a bowl of cherries. Artist. Loves dogs. 5 foot 11 inches. We laughed at the last thing because height is a weird American hobby. Mark seemed weird. Not bad weird, just quiet. He has a tells. He rubs the inside of his ring finger when his brain is chewing a rule. He did that a lot in those months. I chalked it up to being protective of his little sister. He's always been that way. Shared his fries with her when they were 5 and let her crash on his dorm couch when she and her freshman roommate almost killed each other over shower caddies. They did IUI first. No luck. He came home late a few times, said he had site visits that ran over. He usually texts pictures when he's on a job, rebar sunset, cranes against weird sky, and he didn't. Again, I chalked it up to stress. It's funny what you file under normal when you love someone. It worked. Becca got pregnant. There were tears, a picture on a fridge, a tiny pair of Vans presented like offering. I cried in my car after I found out, because joy will blindside you when you can't handle it and you handle it anyway. Small Richmond sentence, we celebrated with a sandwich from Garnett's, split a coconut cake slice, watched people walk their dogs down Park Avenue, and felt like a movie about regular people who get good news. Becca's pregnancy went textbook. Taryn nested a PhD. My mull, the kind of woman who makes deviled eggs like a spiritual practice, set a date for a naming ceremony after the baby was born. We're not religious, Becca said, but we're sentimental. They wanted a backyard thing, string lights, names said out loud so they feel real. The baby, Nora, was born on a Tuesday in April at St. Mary's. 7 pounds, 9 ounces, hair like a tiny intention, eyes like somebody's future. We held her and she did that newborn squint that makes you think she's judging you. Becca glowed like a person who did something ancient and new. Taryn cried whenever anyone made a good joke. I went home and stared at my ceiling and thought my heart had grown a tiny room just for this kid. 2 weeks later, the naming. Taryn's parents flew in from Asheville. My parents drove up from Midlothian. Our backyard looked like Pinterest in a way that shouldn't work and did because string lights redeem many sins. My mill clinked a glass. To Nora, she said, to Becca and Taryn, and to keeping it in the family. My brain snagged on the last sentence like a sweater on a nail. It didn't feel like an in-law thing she'd say. It felt loaded. What does that mean? I asked, not loud, not a fight yet. My MIL blushed. Just, she fluttered a hand. Strong genes. She made a face like she'd said something inappropriate at a funeral. I looked at Mark. He was holding Nora, bouncing her in that gentle dad, hello, Anger, who isn't a dad way. He put down the champagne, handed Nora to my dad without looking at me, and said, voice weird and flat, I donated. The backyard sound lowered like someone turned a dial. Donated what? My mother asked, because she is a woman who gets A's on tests. Sperm, Mark said, to Becca and Taryn. Last year. I laughed. I think I laughed. At a clinic? I asked. Like anonymous? Becca's face was pale and brave. Directed donor, she said. We picked him. It's legal. He's not a legal parent. She looked at me like she'd practiced this in the mirror and still didn't know how to make it not wreck everything. We wanted a known donor. Someone with a health history we could ask about. Someone we knew was kind. It felt like the air were thin. You? I said to Mark. He nodded. He was a man above a sink about to wash a dish that would shatter. Why didn't you tell me? I asked, soft. He rubbed the inside of his ring finger. I was going to, he said. I told Becca I'd talk to you. We went to the consult, and the counselor told us to be clear with our boundaries, and he looked at me like I could save him. You were in the middle of that campaign launch, and your dad was in the hospital, and Becca's retrieval had to be bumped up because of her hormone levels, and he swallowed. I blinked, and then it felt late, and then later felt later. You thought I'd say no, I said. He did that half shrug that lives between I'm sorry and I'm exactly the person you think I am right now. You donated your sperm to your sister and didn't tell your wife? My mother asked, eyes huge enough for owls. Matthew, she said to my father, this is above my pay grade. Terrence stepped closer. Jess, I am so sorry, she said. I told them he had to tell you. We wouldn't have done it if I thought he hadn't. I believed him. That's on me too. I turned around and stared at the neighbor's fence because it had knots in it that made sense and people didn't. I could taste the barbecue smoke, the sweet tea, the whole stupid party on my tongue. I need to sit, I said. I went inside. I sat on our bed and stared at a fan blade that doesn't spin evenly. Mark followed and stood in the doorway like a dog who knows the couch is off limits. Why? I asked the ceiling. He leaned on the jamb. She asked me when they moved to IVF, he said. They were burned out on the profiles. The bank had wait lists. The clinic said a directed donor could be a good fit. She said, you don't have to. You can say no. And I thought, I can be a good brother. We can keep the door cracked. If Nora wants to know where her ears came from, she doesn't have to pay $99 for a website. And yes, I told myself I was helping. And not telling me? I asked. I told myself you'd feel weird about the intimacy of it, even though it isn't. I told myself we were in a fight about that stupid visa dispute and I'd pick a better day. Then I told myself she'd do the first round with the bank donor and I'd have time. You told yourself a lot, I said. I did, he said. He started crying, which made me want to throw a glass and also crawl into his shirt. I did a brave thing and a cowardly thing in the same week. I can't make the brave redeem the coward. It's funny the things you do when you're trying not to burn the house down. I went back outside, hugged Becca, hugged Taryn, kissed Nora's ridiculous forehead, and finished the deviled eggs. I was polite. It's genetic. That night, after we packed up the platters and my mother had finished rinsing and pretending she wasn't eavesdropping, I said to Mark, "You need to leave for a while." He nodded like he'd thought that sentence in his head 100 times and hoped it was a design error. He grabbed a duffel and went to his friend Dylan's place in Church Hill, sent me a picture of his pillow on a couch like proof he'd followed instructions. I slept diagonally and did not sleep. Updates, update 1, 3 days later, therapy. Immediately. For me, for us, for them. I found someone who specialized in family systems and donor conception because Google is both the devil and my friend. Her office smelled like lemon oil and had a rug with triangles. She said words like informed consent and secrecy versus privacy. She said you can be pro-babies and still reject the way this happened. She asked me what I wanted, and I did that thing where you answer a different question because you can't say the one out loud yet. I want to build a shed, I said. By myself, with a hammer. I said nothing because sorry is pennies on the table after this. Becca came over with cookies she clearly bought at Elwood and put on a plate because she knows me. She sat on my floor and cried. "You're my person," she said, "and I hurt you in the stupidest way." "You're also my person," I said. We sat in our stupid sugar house and held the fact that both things were true. Small USA local sentence got a biscuit from Early Bird Biscuit Company and ate it standing on the sidewalk because sitting felt decadent. Watched a VCU kid almost get taken out by a scooter and thought, I used to be that fearless. Update 2 weeks later, the paperwork. Because there's the ethical and then there's the legal. Becca's clinic had done things correctly, mostly. Directed donor agreement, clear relinquishment of parental rights, legal parentage established for Becca and Taryn by a court order after birth. Mark's name isn't on anything that makes him a legal father. That was both a relief and gasoline. We met with a family lawyer, a woman named Helene, who looks like she could win a fight with a city council and a hurricane. She said, "You're navigating two maps, your marriage and your extended family. The law doesn't care about your feelings. You have to decide what to do with them." She explained that Mark doesn't owe child support, can't claim rights, and that any relationship with Nora is a family agreement, not something that belongs on a court docket. She said if I wanted a separation, we should draft a postnup that addresses what happens if we divorce later so this doesn't become a back-end war with a baby in the middle. I hated that this all needed categories. I also felt better. Mark wanted to meet. We sat at a picnic table at Bryan Park like two people negotiating a ceasefire. He didn't make excuses. He said, I chose the right thing and the wrong way. I thought I could hold both. I was wrong. He asked what I wanted him to do. I hadn't answered that question yet. Start by telling our parents, I said. Both sides, not on a group text. He did. His mom owned her part. I thought you told Jess, honey. I never would have said anything if I'd known, which helped. My mother made a sound I've only heard when she's read obituaries for people who died too young. Then she came over and did my laundry unasked, which is what love looks like when indignation isn't helpful. Update 3, 1 month later, the internet showed up. Not Reddit. Our very own Facebook overlords via a friend who is pregnant and posted in a mommy group about known donors. Someone DM'd me a blog link, donor-conceived adults talking about their experiences. I read for hours. Some were bitter, some were grateful. Mostly I felt the thing my therapist called context. Kids want to know their story. They do better with truth, even uncomfortable truth, if it's told early and consistently. I told Mark, if we stay together, we tell this story in our house without hiding or whispering. We don't make it Becca and Taryn's secret to manage. We don't make it Nora's secret to carry. He said yes. It sounded like a man trying to be the person he thought he was. Becca and Taryn asked if I wanted space from Nora. It felt like a trap question because there's no compassionate answer that doesn't hurt someone. I said I need a different kind of closeness. We decided on phone calls for a month. Pictures, voice notes. I cried at a 7-second clip of a baby sneezing, which is an embarrassing sentence to type and very true. Small Richmond sentence, walked the pipeline on a Sunday morning with my sister, ate sub-rosa croissants afterward, watched someone take wedding photos on the bridge, and didn't throw my phone in the river once. Update 4, 6 weeks later, moving parts. Mark moved back in. Not to our bed, guest room. We did the dance of two people in a house who aren't using the same soap. He made coffee. He didn't talk before I'd had mine. He went to therapy twice a week, couples therapy once. We had a shared Google Doc called Truths where we put questions we didn't want to lob like grenades. Every Thursday night we picked two. He answered honestly. I tried to listen like a person, not a witness prepping cross-examination. Example questions. Did you ever think about having a baby with her? No, it was never that. It was a lab. It was a clinic. It wasn't romance. Could you imagine seeing your face in her face? Yes, and I told myself that was selfish and corrupted why we were doing it. Did you think I'd leave you if you told me? Yes, I hoped I was wrong. I did the dumb thing and confirmed my bias by making it worse. I started sleeping better. This is not generosity, it's survival. Update 5. 2 months later, a surprise I didn't order. My father got sick again. Hospital, wristband, fluorescent lights that make everyone look like bad photocopies. We took shifts. Mark was there. That's its own category of pain. Watching the man who broke your heart hand your father a cup of ice chips and make a good joke. People are complicated. I don't recommend it. Becca came by the hospital with a casserole and an apology for coming into my life sideways. She put a picture of Nora on my dad's tray table, and he smiled in a way that made me want to laugh and die. Strong grip, he said of the baby he'd met twice. He didn't say my son-in-law's child because he is not a person who says emails of feelings. He is a person who eats the jello and says not bad and means this is terrible. He died 2 weeks later, quietly, in the morning. My mother called, and I went to the bathroom at work and sat on the floor and made the noise I made when my dog died when I was 13. Mark held me in the hallway like grief was a wolf to be kept at bay with arms. I let him. There are moments where you give the right person access to you because it's the right person, even if they have been the wrong person in other moments. The funeral was a small church in Midlothian with bad carpet. I gave a eulogy and did not throw up. Nora cried once. It made everyone nervous. Babies at funerals are a reminder that we do not get to have a single kind of day. After the funeral on my parents' deck, my mother took my hand and said, "He sees who you pick. Make him proud." It wasn't about Mark. It was about me. It was also about Mark. Update 6. 4 months later, I went to a donor conception counselor by myself because there's only so much regular therapy can do for this. She's a woman in short pump with IKEA shelves and a brain that holds laws and feelings at the same time. She said, "Your boundary can be I love you and I can't be your partner while you build a relationship with Nora. Your boundary can also be I love you and I'll try. Neither makes you a villain, neither makes you a hero." We wrote a plan with Becca and Taryn. It lives in a shared folder. It has bullets, things like how we refer to Mark in front of Nora. Mark, Uncle Mark, not Daddy Mark, ever. No one tells Nora before she can understand. Kid-level truth when she asks, not your dad. Uncle Mark's genetics are part of your story. Mark doesn't go to pediatrician appointments unless invited by them for a medical reason. Mark doesn't post photos of Nora on his social without Becca and Taryn's consent. Holidays, treat Uncle Mark like Uncle Mark. There's no extra, there's no less. If feelings get too big for a person, that person can take a step back without everyone being punished. We all signed it like a weird constitution. It has a named backup plan. If this breaks, we pause. We don't punish. We don't litigate. We call Helene and our therapist and figure out how to build new scaffolding. Small USA local sentence sat on the church steps at St. John's on Church Hill and watched the city. A guy in a UVA hoodie ate a sandwich. I drank a Dr. Pepper and thought about my dad and about diapers and about emails I hadn't answered and felt the sun on my knee for 2 minutes. Update 7. 6 months later, people ask, "Are you jealous of Becca?" That's not the word. I am disoriented. I am the queen of refills at family gatherings. I am the "tell me about your day" person. Now I'm also the person who hears my husband talk about a baby he loves whom he is not the dad of and is the genetic source of, and my brain has not found a shelf that fits that jar yet. Mark is doing the work. Boring work. He shows up to therapy. He cooks. He doesn't make every conversation about proving he's good. He holds our friends' babies without me having to catch my breath as much. He takes the compost out. He is drawing with pencils again, which is a thing he stopped during the bad year, and I hadn't realized that that was a grief until it came back. We had sex for the first time in a long time. I'm not going to give you a romance novel. It was careful. It was good. It made me feel like a person whose body is not a courtroom. We also started trying for a baby. Surprise. Not because of Nora, because my dad died and my body got loud, and I realized I'd been waiting for the feeling of perfect timing to present itself like an RSVP that never comes. We talked to a doctor. We found out we'd need help. I cried in our car outside of LabCorp while the sun did that thing in Virginia where it looks like it's underwater. Mark held my hand and said, "We'll do this right. Together. Or we'll not do it. Together." Update 8. 9 months later, Becca's family came for dinner. Taryn brought a carrot cake. My mother brought a casserole because I think casseroles breed in her trunk. Nora did that thing where babies learn to wave and then wave like they're leading a tiny parade. Mark looked like a man who was practicing being exactly an uncle. It made me want to hug him and throw him in the river, depending on the beat. After dinner, Becca and I did dishes like team sports. She said, "Therapy told me to ask you if you feel like we stole something from you." I said, "Therapy asked you to ask that?" She grinned. "It did." I nodded. "Yes," I said. "Not Nora. The choice. The part where I get to be the person who says yes or no to big things in my marriage." She nodded. "We stole from you. I'm sorry." I nodded. "Me too," I said. It humbled me to mean that in two directions. Small Richmond sentence. We took Nora to Maymont to see goats. One tried to eat Mark's sleeve. He let it. It felt like a thing that would have happened no matter what. Update 9. 1 year later, people keep trying to write happy endings or sad endings for us. We don't have either. We have a calendar with built-in kindness. We have a marriage that is different and sometimes better. We also have days where I look at Mark and think, I wish you told me before you were the person who didn't tell me. We did one round of IUI. It didn't stick. We cried and ate Thai food and watched a cooking show where people make layered puddings and call it a trifle. We decided to rest. My therapist said, make sure what you're wanting is yours, not the wind's. I made a Google Doc called Our Want and put 2 bulleted lists under it. It felt nerdy. It helped. Nora turned 1. Another backyard. Fewer deviled eggs, more watermelon. My Mel did not make a toast. She hugged me and said, "You are a good woman," which is the kind of sentence women say to each other when they wish they could rewrite a lot of things and they can only rewrite what's in front of them. Mark gave Becca and Taryn a photo book called Year 1 of Nora, The People Who Love You. He put me on the first page. I didn't cry. I waited until later, and I cried. Update 10, 18 months later, if you're in this mess or some cousin of it, here's what I know. Secrets rot. Not all privacy is secrecy. If you are doing a thing that affects your partner's ability to consent to their life, that's a secret. Don't be a man who calls cowardice kindness. Directed donation is not a sin. Doing it without explicit consent from your own person is a betrayal. Both sentences can live in the same house. The kids don't care about your categories. They care that the same people are in the room at the same time saying the same words. Don't make your forgiveness timeline their bedtime. Contentment is built out of boring choices. A Google Doc, a rule about who posts, a Thursday night Q&A with a timer. Money for therapy is worth more than a trip to anywhere right now. People can be the worst versions of themselves in the same week they're the best. That doesn't obligate you to wait for the good to return. It does allow you to point to it and say, do that again. Mark is still in the guest room sometimes, and in our bed others. He still rubs his ring finger when he's scared. He still takes the compost out without being asked. He still loves his sister and her kid. He's still the guy who brings me a drink when I forget I'm thirsty. We might have a baby. We might not. We planted tomatoes. They did okay. We'll plant again. Small USA local sentence. Sat on the wall by Belle Isle with a cup of Blanchard's iced coffee, watched the kids climb rocks and the dogs try not to be bad, and for a long minute. I thought only about the sound of water and not about whose DNA is where. It felt like grace.